Do you need to be good at drawing in order to be an animator? This is a question that I've seen come up many times, so I wanted to make a video about it that can hopefully provide some answers. If you don't want to watch the whole video, I'll save you some time and give you the short answer, no. But there's more to it than that though, so if you want some more details, let's get into it. If you're not familiar with my channel and why I might have opinions on questions like this, I'm Dave, and I've been animating professionally since 2014. I've worked on 2D productions, 3D productions, TV, feature, and video games, some of which you can see on screen right now. This channel is all about animation, and if learning about animation is something that interests you, you should definitely go ahead and click the subscribe button, and also check the video description for an invite to my Discord server. If you'd like more in-depth discussion about animation, it's definitely a great place to be. But back to the question at hand, drawing and animation. Animation is a visual art form, and so is drawing. The two are related, but one doesn't equal the other. You can be great at drawing, but be bad at animation, and you can be a great animator and be terrible at drawing. These are two different things that require two different skill sets. For drawing, you're looking at things like proportion, perspective, anatomy, draftsmanship, and for animation, you're looking at things like acting, timing, body mechanics, and creating believable movement. And just as a side note, when I refer to being an animator in this video, I'm referring specifically to the job of a character animator, meaning the person who makes the characters move. There are many jobs in the animation industry where drawing is absolutely necessary, but you're not actually animating in those jobs. Things like layout, design, and to a large degree story. So in this video, we're talking about the job of an animator. In the past, the answer to this question was rather different than it is today. Before the advent of computer animation, the vast majority of animation that you see on TV or in movies was hand-drawn on paper. Usually these animations would be played at 24 frames per second and they would be animated on twos, meaning that there would be a new drawing every 2 frames. So that means for every 1 second of animation that you'd watch, there would be 12 drawings. So if you add up the number of seconds in a movie, you can quickly see just how many drawings are required to make a film this way. And I think this is where we get the idea that you have to be good at drawing in order to be an animator, because in the past, animating like this, you did have to be good at drawing. But at the same time, that actually wasn't a hard rule, because even before 3D animation existed, there were other forms of animation that didn't require drawing at all. We could look at things like stop motion or cutout animation, where you're not really drawing anything, you're just manipulating existing objects to create the illusion that they're actually moving. And this is something that I think a lot of kids experiment with, myself included, where you can do something as simple as pose an action figure, take a photo of it, and then do that again a whole bunch of times and play back those photos sequentially, and you've got yourself an animation. So you can see that even in the past, you didn't actually have to be able to draw in order to create animations, but with that being said though, historically, if you were good at drawing, you would have had a much higher chance of finding success in the animation industry. This belief was very apparent in things like college admissions. Speaking personally, I attended both Seneca and Sheridan College, which are generally regarded as some of the top animation schools. I applied initially to the animation programs there in 2006. However, I ended up applying a total of 4 times over 6 years. That's because back then, the application process for both schools required you to submit a portfolio of your work, which was based entirely on your ability to draw. It didn't take into account at all whether you could animate. The portfolio requirements included things like life drawings, character designs, turnarounds, environmental drawings, and storyboards, and these things all demonstrate different kinds of drawing ability, but they're still just that. Drawings. None of them actually move. Portfolio requirements like this would make it seem as though good drawing equals good animation, which I think is still a bit of a misconception today, but it's what I believed before I actually started working in the animation industry. As I learned about animation in school, and then I started seeing the kind of jobs that people were getting after they graduated, I started to realize that there's actually much more of a disconnect between drawing ability and animating ability than I had been led to believe. And that leads me to the industry as it is now. We've talked about how in the past drawing and animation used to go hand in hand, but how is that different today? Well, to start, the vast majority of animation is not drawn on paper anymore. Obviously, this is the case for 3D animation, but it's also the case for 2D animation as well. That's not to say that there's no drawing in 2D animation anymore, there definitely is. There are even still 2D productions which are fully hand-drawn, but it's just there are so many fewer ones than there were in the past. Nowadays, what you'll frequently see for 2D productions, especially in TV, is that they'll use the cutout style of animation, which I actually think is more similar to 3D animation than it is to traditional hand-drawn animation. That's because with this style of animation, the animator is working with a pre-existing character rig, which is much like 3D animation, where you're not actually creating any new drawings. What you're doing is just manipulating the rig to be in the poses that you want. And when you're working with a character rig like this, you're able to create animation without ever actually having to really draw anything. And this brings me to the next issue. If it's not necessary to be good at drawing in order to be an animator, then if you want to be an animator, is there a point in learning to draw at all? Yes, there is. Being skilled at drawing is not a necessity, but it can definitely help. Having drawing skills can allow animators to create poses for characters that they likely wouldn't have come up with without knowing things like proportion, anatomy, and body mechanics. And this is true even for 3D productions. In these productions, in the software, you're working in a 3D environment, so you can see your character from all angles, and you can make some really interesting poses with the character. However, when it comes down to it, with the finished product, what the viewers are going to see on the screen is still going to be a flat 2D image. And if you think about it, you've created this pose in 3D space, however, the 2D image that the viewer is watching in the finished product is basically a drawing. And this is where we get the term animating to camera, which is frequently used in 3D productions. And what this means is that when you're animating to camera, you should be paying particular attention to how the character is going to look when viewed specifically through the camera view, which the viewer is going to see in the finished product. When you're working in a 3D environment, it's sometimes easy to assume that your animation already looks pretty good because you can rotate around your character and see it from all different views. However, sometimes if you look through the actual camera view, which the viewer is going to see, it might not look as good as you think it does. So in this case, you'll need to animate to camera and adjust the poses of your character so that they're the most appealing in the view which we'll see in the actual finished product, even if it might not actually make sense in a 3D environment. So to bring this back to drawing skills, this is where it can be beneficial to have experience with drawing, because you can draw from that experience to be able to create more appealing poses when animating to camera. I remember on the first feature film that I worked on, The Secret Life of Pets 2, the animation director was reviewing my work and he asked me if I had a background in 2D animation, which I did. He said that he could tell I did because of the way that I was posing the characters to work within the camera view. And this was one of those moments where the light bulb kind of turned on. I was like, oh, this is actually useful. So to sum up what we've been discussing in this video, is it necessary to be good at drawing in order to be a good animator? No, absolutely not. But can it be beneficial? Yes, it definitely can. It's an additional skill that you can acquire in order to improve your animations. Over the years, I've met and worked with many animators who have varying degrees of drawing skills. Some of them are incredible artists that draw all the time. However, others never draw at all. So it really just comes down to the individual person. It's not a necessity, but it is an additional skill which you can acquire and which can be useful. So if you're not the best at drawing, but you want to be an animator, don't give up because you can still get there. So I hope this video was useful for you. It's part of a series of videos which I'd like to make regarding animating and the animation industry. If you want to see more videos like this, you should definitely subscribe, and if there's a particular topic you'd like to see me discuss, you can leave a comment below and I'd be happy to read it and maybe even make a video about it. And if you'd like to talk more about animation, I do have a Discord server where you can join and ask anything you want or even share your work for me and others to see. But otherwise though, thanks for watching and I'll talk to you later.